Welcome, you're on the Fringe Show. I'm your host, Tatiana, and I go live every Friday at 2 p.m. Dubai time. The Fringe helps you to navigate the rapidly changing world and increase the odds of your success. Here we talk about technology, startups, and mental models of successful people so that you too can take advantage of the opportunities in the new digital world. Today, I'm going to give you a glimpse into the future with Balaji Srinivasan. I have been following his work for many years now, and I'm his follower on Twitter and subscriber to his newsletter. Why do you need to listen to the ideas that are coming from Balaji? It's because, as some of his fans have remarked, you can be at least 15 years ahead if you listen to content from Balaji Srinivasan. Balaji is one of those unique people who generates perhaps one new idea every 5 minutes. He is awake. And there are three ideas that I find particularly interesting, which I would like to share with you with my own take and my own commentary. These are citizen journalism. A second idea is startup cities and network states. I already mentioned something about network states and startup cities in my very first show when I started, my very first episode, rather, of the Fringe Show. And the third idea is pseudonymous economy. Some of these ideas are controversial and they may even sound some kind of sci-fi, almost unreal, but I can assure you that we see the seeds and the kernels of these ideas already coming together. Let me just remind you that it's a live show, and please allow Facebook to identify you. Please comment, ask questions as we go along, and I will see if there are any questions as well at the end of this show. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Balaji Srinivasan. He's got probably the most unusual CV that I've ever come across. He's kind of wears multiple hats and is a true polymath, I would say. He's formerly the CTO of Coinbase and also general partner of Andreessen Horowitz. He is a serial entrepreneur, has got many startups. Most of them were sold out. For example, Earn.com was sold to Coinbase. There are many others that he established, so a serial entrepreneur. He was also mentioned as, or rather won, a Wall Street Journal Innovation Award and holds multiple degrees, including a PhD in electrical engineering and MS in Master of Science in Chemical Engineering, both of them from Stanford. He occasionally teaches at Stanford, and he's also run one of the most popular MOOCs, probably in the history of that platform. I think it was on Coursera, massive open online platform, and that particular course attracted 250,000 students or in excess of them. He correctly predicted two things which were very important for the development of humanity, I would say. One, the rise of crypto, and then the pandemic that we are living through. He saw it coming long before many other people saw it. He's an investor also, apart from all these things that he's doing. He's an investor in decentralized crypto projects. One of such projects I will mention again in this show is called Bidcloud, and it's a decentralized social network. If you're interested, you probably would want to check it out. I personally follow his 1729 project. It's a very ambitious project, and his goal here is to make Bitcoin mainstream. And one of the ways of making mainstream is to complete tasks, and so this is what the readers or the followers of that project are required to do: complete a certain task. It can be, for example, a review of an article, and in exchange for that work, for this micro task, you will receive payments in Bitcoin. His values are very interesting as well. It's truth, health, and wealth, in that particular order. And he always, or rather emphasizes that many times, that he came into crypto not because he wanted to get wealthy, but for freedom. He's so popular, or rather his ideas are so popular in tech circles that a fan, or rather club of people who are his fans, started a website which is called bestofbiology.com. And my credit goes to them as well, because what they've done, they've collected all his multiple ideas from blogs, from things that he's ever written, and from his Twitter feeds. He writes on communicates a lot on Twitter. So the first idea that I would like to share with you from him is citizen journalism and decentralized media. What his main idea here is that you, and I mean you, my followers, you are very good, you're an expert really in something, and it is your responsibility, he says, as a citizen to do citizen journalism, to share what you've got, your expertise with the world. And I'm sure you will, most of you, many of you rather, will connect with that. His focus is on individuals who are outside of legacy institutions. They're taking upon themselves to write upon topics that they're experts in. You may ask yourself a question, well, why do we need citizens journalism? Well, it's because for certain topics, you really need to have a very deep technical background or deep expertise to cover them. And it's not something that many journalists can do. For example, I'm interested in blockchain, and it just disheartens me how much misinformation and lack of understanding you can see in mainstream media. In his own words, what he said is, what I've realized it is that you can't give media and political elites an intuition for math and science overnight. And he quotes, and I've checked out on this particular blog, he quotes an example of such citizen journalism. This is a young guy on Reddit who reverse engineered a particular platform, which I will not mention, but you probably will guess what I'm referring to. It's a platform particularly popular with young people, and it's nothing but a data collection service, thinly veiled as a social network. So he writes about what this platform actually does and what kind of information it collects on you. So that this very idea is that citizen journalists publish out of sense of civic duty, and it is not their daily job. It is not my daily job to have the show with me. I consider myself also doing a bit of citizen journalism in that respect. So we people who are doing that, we don't have the perverse incentives. We are more interested in the truth, in a very different narrative, rather than some kind of political agendas. And another thing that will be possible with citizen journalism is reproducible journalism. So it's a second component of citizen journalism. This reproducible journalism is based on the idea of decentralized fact-checking. There are lots of fact-checkers out there. And my question is, well, who is checking the fact-checkers? That will involve a very new culture of journalism, citations of all sources, acknowledgement of all sources, GitHub style of corrections, and some kind of new technology. This technology already exists, and for truth, this citizen journalism could include decentralized fact-checking enabled by the ledger of records. So I'm referring here to blockchain, of course. In this transition, the key is to switch from institutional authority to cryptographic truth. You won't trust a story just because it was published in a prestigious journal. You will trust it because it cites events and facts that were hashed on a blockchain in a provable way, in a way you can't change, in a kind of hard to fake way. And what we're seeing is that the concept of the press as an entity is very distinct from the citizenry at large, and it's going away. Every citizen becomes a citizen journalist. And an interesting thing about citizen journalists is that you can actually monetize your fan base, you can monetize your community, and it can be done at the moment very easily with Substack. So if you haven't heard about this platform where really good quality articles and reviews are being published, Substack is one thing probably to check for you. And before I go any further, let me see who is here, who's making the comments here. Oh, Larissa, hello. Hello, Larissa. Hello from Australia. Citizen journalists are like that. Yeah, me too. Yeah, who's checking them, right? Well, blockchain, if you can put things and hashtag them on blockchain, then it will stay there forever, and probably it would be well, a good way of making sure that it's immutable and it stays there, and it can be checked, it's verifiable, and so on. Another idea that's coming from him is startup cities and countries. And as I mentioned previously, I referred to that in my very first show. Startup cities, according to biology, are the cryptocurrencies of the 2020s. In the 2000s, we saw this rise of big tech giants. 2010s were where cryptocurrencies got started. 2020s are when we see the emergence of startup cities. And 2030, according to him, will be the decade of network states. So startup cities, kind of a transitional period to network states. There are many models that we can see in real life today, but it's a city where startups happen, such as Miami, when San Francisco used to be before the massive exodus to other places from that state. A city may act like startups, and probably Miami is a good example, Dubai is another example, or a city that is a startup itself. And we do have startup cities right now as well, like Prospera, Cul-de-Sac, Starbase, and even TX. Technology plays a very big role there. It's transformative, particularly if you're thinking about DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. DAOs are now legal in Wyoming. They're based on blockchain technology. DAOs are limited liability corporations. They're kind of hip hybrid entities, and they combine elements and features from corporations, but also partnerships or sole proprietorships. And then startup cities are feasible because there is a growing market for cities. Cities experiencing competitive pressures just like other tech companies or even national currencies are experiencing. And people want to migrate to these startup cities or maybe invest in one because it can outcompete the legacy infrastructure. And there are many other examples as well, like Taiwan and Singapore. Biology also talks about some practical matters of how you can start a startup city. All you need to do, or to have rather, is to have a piece of land and a leader influencer as a founder of these startup cities. His advice is build a community in the cloud first. Don't start with real estate. Identify a unique interest around which all your members or all your community will be united. It may be, say, a car-free city, or it may be, say, vegans that are interested in living together. Build a critical mass of people. Organize the economy around remote work. Then you can enforce laws through smart contracts on blockchain. You can practice in-person norms of civil discourse. You can design the city online as a next step and architecture that in virtual reality. And eventually, then and only then, you can crowdfund the territory. You can, if you're a sufficiently large group of people, you can negotiate negotiate a deal with the state to buy land in the middle of nowhere, it can be, and then you make sure that there are specific laws that apply to this territory, and then move there, materialize the city in the real world. So the key to it really is doing cloud first and land last. Build a community first, don't worry about real estate. And that can be very often solved after you have sufficient number of people who are united by the same idea. What is the difference now? All these startup cities, as we said, they're just a transitional period into the network state, which will happen maybe in the 20s, 30s. A nation state, as we know, countries like Australia or countries like the UAE, it's where a large group of people are organized by geography, right? But shared ideology is secondary to that. With a network state, it's kind of reversed. It's a large group of people who are organized by beliefs and values, and geography comes second. A great example of those kind of network states already exists. Look at the Ethereum community, at the Kusama community. They're all united by this idea of decentralization, and they're huge communities which are dispersed all over the globe. And he thinks that this kind of arrangement is a lot more democratic because you give 100%, you're 100% committed to the values, to the beliefs. So it's 100% democracy. Because what we see now in democratic Western countries, where 51% of people can dictate what the 49% will be doing, and then after 4 years' time, it may all switch again the other way. It's really more of a clean state when it's like starting a company or starting a new network state. It's probably best. And he also gives some recommendations of how this can be achieved on the implementation side. How do you create a network nation? You can do it in many ways. An election comes first to mind, political revolution and wars, which he doesn't recommend, and neither do I. It's a bad way to start a nation. Micronations are popping up. And if you look at South Africa, which has lots of social problems, what we see there, lots of small self-contained mega estates that almost live their separate lives. The problem with micronations like that is that nobody really cares about them, politically speaking, and they don't really scale well. Another way of starting a network state, a network nation, is seasteading, and that there are some attempts to do that. What it means is moving from water to water with some frequent docking, but unfortunately there is no working example as yet. But people are thinking about it, and there is investment that's going into these kind of almost like crazy ideas. Another way of starting a network state is in space, and this is what Elon Musk arguably is doing, and it has been glamorized. The problem with that is that currently it's technologically infeasible. That's what some mathematicians, some physicists would say. And finally, we can start a network nation with cloud countries. Technology for that already exists, and one of these kind of technologies is blockchain. Let me see what Larissa is saying here in the comments when I bought my land. Actual land, and I'm thinking maybe actual land is not the first in building my country or a city, you can create your reality first and then manifest it in the physical realm. That's basically what he's saying, around a set of values. So that's another interesting idea from biology. And finally, I would like to talk about the pseudo-anonymous economy. Let me read out and quote him directly what he means by pseudonymity and why it's important. And it's important not to confuse pseudonymity with anonymity is pseudonymity. It's not you not being recognizable, hiding everywhere, anywhere, and so on. This is what he says about pseudonymity. Pseudonymity allows you to build up a reputation while at the same time shielding you from character assassination. Pseudonymity would allow us to separate our speaking name and our earning name from our real name. And this would make us less vulnerable to attacks on our reputation. So it's a reputation protecting or shielding device, the way he sees this. And this is important because negative press is essentially an attack on your social network. You could lose friends, you could lose customers, employees, investors, and sometimes even your job. We see this already happening on some social platforms like Reddit, Finstas on Instagram, and crypto Twitter. All these are examples of pseudonymous economy. And pseudonymity, according to Balaji, allows freedom after speech, and it prevents retaliation and canceling you out, cancellations. He also talks a lot and thinks a lot about what's wrong with centralized platforms. There are many things that are wrong, and I personally, in one of my shows, also talked about what's the difference between decentralized platforms and centralized platforms and why we're moving towards decentralization. It's because decentralization gives you a lot more innovation and a lot more ability to do things freely. And the reason why centralized platforms, don't get me wrong, I think they've created enormous amount of value for a lot of users all over the world, and people have become wealthy because of the things they've done on, say, Facebook and Twitter. But nevertheless, there are some real problems with centralized platforms. They're insecure. Accounts of many prominent people have been hacked. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are among them. They're not authenticated, so it's very hard to say whether a particular, say, tweet is coming from a user or is faked by a central server. They're not pseudonymous. That means people are vulnerable to personal attacks and sometimes even physical attacks, not just in the space, not just in the cyberspace. They are distribution checkpoints as well, because users don't really control their reach, their brand, or even monetization. They don't create wealth for you. You, as a user, create wealth for them. Plus, there is an instant feedback on what's popular, what's kind of trending, not on what is true. And that creates very much toxic culture and a culture of constant infighting. But apart from criticizing platforms, Balaji gives some solutions. So what are the solutions to these platforms? New kinds of social networks that allow people not just to pseudonymously speak, but also to earn and trade with each other. And that could be really a major step forward for online privacy. As many other technologies, he is concerned with individual freedoms and online privacy. So in a pseudonymous economy, just to recap, your speaking, your earning, and your real names would be separated. I know it's an interesting idea and very unusual idea, but I think it has some legs. Transactions on blockchain can be pseudonymous, so trade can be pseudonymous. There already are. Most of the blockchains are pseudonymous. And the ability to send and receive money pseudonymously would protect your income against personal attacks. You can have open, decentralized media. And his view is that unlike with all the previous media, you need to start community first, not technology first, but community first. Build your fan base and then find a technology that suits your needs. And he himself has invested in a social network that is decentralized. Please check it out. It's called Bidcloud. So has got some skin in the game. And to him and to us, those of you who are probably in the blockchain space, we see blockchain as a means to an end. It's a social technology, but also an institutional technology. Blockchains are really transformative because they provide a new set of tools in the form of, for example, tokens, where every use of token-based social network can receive tokens. Transactions can be made, as we said, pseudonymously. Every user will have the ability to buy items and pay users out of their balances. And that's a functionality that currently doesn't exist with centralized platforms. We can do crowdfunding, and every user can use their balances to crowdfund public goods in a social network, say education or interesting courses, maybe even healthcare. Messaging will also be possible when every user can use their public-private key pair to send encrypted messages back and forth to each other. And finally, what it allows us to have is the kind of quantifiable social capital, because the market capitalization of that token will reflect the value of you being a member of this community. And so hopefully, if you do a good job, if everybody in the community does a good job, it will create enormous value and the token will appreciate. Can we have a link, please? A link to Balaji or Bidcloud? Okay, if Larissa could please tell me what kind of link you want, I would be happy to provide you with the link. So I think we've been through a bunch of very interesting ideas and ideas about, startup cities, network states, becoming citizen journalists, and operating in a pseudonymous economy. Now, my question to you is, what do you think about Balaji's ideas? Which one will resonate with you? Do you disagree with some of these ideas? Are they too far-fetched, too far off? In my opinion, no, because we see lots of that already happening. So maybe you too can contemplate moving to a startup city or become a founder of a cloud-first network state. So visualize it there, then virtualize it first, and then make it happen in the physical realm. Perhaps you would like to become a citizen journalist because you have a very technical background, you have a lot of expertise in a particular area. Please, it's a civic duty, according to him, and I agree. Or perhaps you would be considering operating in pseudonymous economy. That is already happening. We see pseudonymity to an extent on channels like Reddit and on Twitter as well. So this is it from me. Let me see the comments here. Manifestation matches name of my workshop. I'll certainly come to your workshop. Thank you, Larissa. Thank you for the invite. If you invite me, of course. Bidcloud. It's with a T at the end. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So thank you so much for joining me, and I shall see you on the Fringe show next Friday at 2 p.m. next Dubai time. So it's next Friday, guys, but I won't let you go unless I have a bit of music here, which I really love. I love jazz.